Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Watch That Movie podcast/show, where I watch movies and review them, and I give you my insight and thoughts about it. Today, we'll be talking about Friendship, a new A24 film. What caught my interest with this one was it being a comedic film with pretty strong cast of actors, but also having in the trailers to what I saw was like an underlying tone of weirdness and like an abstract vibe about it. And that's really what drove my interest after seeing the trailer and then seeing some clips online that caught my interest because it seemed like a pretty fun time. And honestly, it was a really fun experience. It was quite hilarious. That's just my first thoughts jumping in. So um, to get a sense of what the movie is, if I had to describe, if you're not familiar with the actor, well, the comedian Tim Robinson, this whole movie feels like a "I think you should leave" sketch. And there's like no other way I can describe it because like, I feel like even though I don't think he wrote it and neither has he was he like a big producer. I don't think he did that. Yeah, I just uh, based on what I've seen, I don't think he's written or directed it, or I mean, clearly he didn't direct it, but he had produced it. But it feels like this movie was completely tailored to Tim Robinson and his comedic style, which is like very, awkward situational humor sketches. Um, you know, and that's like basically what I think you should leave is. Um, which is pretty funny. I find his humor pretty watchable and enjoyable, but not so much in the sense of like where, for example, Key and Peele. I feel like everything that Key and Peele has to offer is like that's like my humor. But only some of the stuff that Tim Robinson I've seen is pretty funny. Um, there's a lot of scenes. I feel like the biggest one that I saw was like the him ordering a bunch of food in order for the pass it along trend to catch on so he can get a bunch of free food. That was like the biggest uh, sketch of his that trended online, and I feel like I didn't really like completely, find that funny. But the one that I found really funny was the one where like they're in court, people on trial um, uh, for some investment, something like that, and they're talking about his hat at work and how people don't like it, and he's like in the audience watching like what the hell. That I feel like that entire sketch is like really funny. That one in the restaurant skit where they're like, I really want that. That looks like a really good burger. I'm gonna eat the whole thing. That entire sketch. I feel like there's some sketches where I find really funny, and then there's some that I just really don't vibe with. But I feel like for the majority of this movie, I found really hilarious and enjoyable. I got to see this on a special event early um, access screening, so the theater was packed, and like the audience knew what they were getting into because I feel like people were familiar with Tim Robinson and then they were there to see him because the entire time everyone was laughing. Everyone was, um, in stitches, and it was really rare. And I haven't been in a movie theater in quite a while where the entire theater was busting out laughing. I feel like I haven't had an experience like that since. And again, I don't go to a lot of comedy movies in theaters because I feel like the comedy genre in Hollywood has sort of started to fizzle out. And so it's been how the comedic drama has been paired with action, or it's been paired with horror, or it's been paired with it's just not as big as it used to be. Stuff like Super Bad or um, you know people don't go out to the theaters just to watch a comedy movie. So I feel like it's been a while since I've been in a theater for a comedy movie. The last one was probably Anchorman 2, and that was like me as a kid, and I remember everyone was laughing at that movie. So that kind of reminded me about this. So it was really kind of cool to experience that. And it was a really good movie. Um, if you're into Tim Robinson, if you like his kind of humor, or if you want to see a comedy movie that's, with a refreshing tone and a new take, I guess, that isn't, very slapstick humor, um, this would be a pretty enjoyable experience. Tim Robinson is like the central character. Uh, he is a he is like I guess a marketing. He works in marketing at his firm, and but his family is moving, and his wife recently came out of recovering from cancer. They don't know exactly say what kind of cancer. They have a teenager son. Um, when a mail mix-up happens, Tim Robinson's character returns the mail and befriends a very charismatic Paul Rudd, who is a meteorologist who had just moved in recently, I assume. Um, and they hit it off. They become friends. Um, Tim Robinson's character is already pretty awkward, doesn't have any friends, doesn't have a social life. His wife hangs out a lot with her ex, which is really weird, and that's like a whole thing. So Tim Robinson his character finally has a someone in the neighborhood to talk uh, to hang out with, and it all goes, a little too well, a little too, uh, too good to be true. Only because once Paul Rudd's character asked the main character out. I need to learn their names. Sorry, I need Craig. So Craig Waterman is Tim Robinson's character. Paul Rudd's character is Austin Carmichael. So Austin invites Craig to hang out at the house with a bunch of Austin's friends that he's already familiar with. Um, and then while they're doing a bunch of stuff, it seems like everything's going well. Austin breaks out these like boxing gloves and like these um, helmet gear to put on, and then Craig, not wanting to show off, and after getting hit a bunch of times in a funny sequence of like, hey, just don't hit me in the head. He gets hit in the head, and that happens a few times, and then he hits Austin. Craig hits Austin a bit too hard, and then it gets awkward and like, whoa, man, what the heck is wrong with you? And then things just spiral like out of control in an attempt to like apologize slash, you know, uh, restart the vibe of the night, and then it just ends up being ruined. And then all of a sudden, Austin is like, "Look, man, I don't want to be friends anymore. I think this should just be over." And this entire film is, Craig just trying to, cast the lightning in the bottle again. Trying to befriend Austin, trying to regain the experience that he had because clearly Craig is in a state where he just doesn't have friends. Nothing's going right. His wife is seeing his ex. His son is distant, and is I feel like nothing in his life works without Austin. So he tries to redo a lot of things, and it just all just spirals out of control. It really is hilarious, and it really does work on the fact that Tim Robinson as an actor and comedian, you know the way he's able to put himself in these situations. And again, I'm just really surprised that this movie wasn't written by them because a lot of this humor and this entire movie is just centered around the ability of Tim Robinson being able to make you laugh. So maybe I guess I need to look more into it. The director wrote and directed this movie with uh, Tim Robinson in mind, and that's how they sold it. So I could be wrong. Um, you know, a lot of good things to say about this movie. This movie wasn't really shot in a way that's particular, but the tone and the vibe, is a bit uh, not abstract, but it's a bit different from usual. I feel like this movie was about to take a turn that was about to be like, either dark or just unsettling or something. I was waiting for the oh moment or like for the plot twist or for something to tell me that this movie is beyond, there's more than just comedy. But I guess that just never happened. And, I was okay with that. I'm okay with this movie just being as it is and being a comedy movie. I was really liking what Tim Robinson was doing on screen and then enjoying Paul Rudd, you know, him as Austin. And I felt like there was just small moments where I felt like something was going to go wrong. And there is something that goes wrong um, at some point that kind of, happens in the plot. But I feel like if I had to say one of the things that I didn't really like or something that I was confused about was where the movie was going. In terms of when you have a situational comedy, there needs to be a driving force in order to progress the plot along, because it is a movie, isn't it? Even though a lot of the scenes and a lot of the moments that are really funny in this movie are, situational and, work off one particular joke, uh, something needs to be happening to progress the plot forward. And again, something does kind of happen, but I feel like this entire movie, I feel like doesn't have much to say about anything other than how hard it is for some people to make friends and to be normal. But I know, and I only know that because the director has said that, but I didn't really get that a lot from the movie itself. I mean, you can clearly see that Tim Robinson's character, Craig Waterman, is a very niche, very awkward guy. Things don't work out for him. It's really hard for him to be normal. Um, I get that. But at the same time, I didn't feel like that was the theme or that there was a theme in particular to be told or a lesson to be learned. Not that every movie needs a lesson, but I don't know. I feel like when the movie ended, I'm like, that was really funny. I don't know what it had to say about anything. Again, it doesn't really have to, but I feel like I just watched a really long sketch, and I really wish there could have been something, I don't know, a little more to have been warranted in the movie, because otherwise, I guess you could say this could have been several episodes of something on a TV show or something. I don't know. It's really hard to grasp. But what I'm trying to say, if it's going to be a movie, there should be an understanding of what the movie's trying to say, or build a story that has like a climax that is satisfying in some sense, whether it be tragic or really happy. Because I feel like the movie is too situational, uh, in order at the expense of the plot. It's trying to be funny, so it creates all of these situations, but at the same time, it doesn't really have a plot that necessarily builds. So let's just jump into spoilers, since I want to talk a bit more about what some of the underlying plot elements that drive the story forward. So, the spoiler warning: if you haven't seen it, this movie isn't really important, I guess, for spoilers to be. You know, the spoilers won't really hinder your enjoyment, so you can go ahead and watch this anyway. But this is a plot point, certain plot elements that do happen. Um, at some point, Craig Watterson's the main character, Tim Robinson's character. At some point, in an attempt to kind of rejuvenate and you know, rekindle the emotions and like the friendship that he had with Austin, because Austin has now distanced himself from Craig, in an attempt to you know, redo what he experienced and and trying to catch that moment again. He, in an impromptu date, he drags his wife along on a sewer journey to go to the rooftop of a city town hall, because that's what Craig and Austin did on one of their first few nights hanging out, and that was like an extraordinary night for him. So he's gonna try to catch that, by bringing his wife along, and his wife is like, "Oh, I really don't want to. Can't we just do something else?" Um, but he insists, and then in the process, he ends up losing her, and the wife ends up getting lost, and and he kind of just returns home, and he tries to play it off as normal, when and then eventually the cops intervene, and there's like a huge manhunt search for her, but he ends up getting arrested along with Austin, because they did end up admitting that they were here before and they had trespassed onto government property in the sewers. Um, so again, like the plot per se is Craig trying to confront Austin, trying to befriend him, trying to show him you can't just abandon me, you can't just say we're friends and then we're not friends anymore. And then there's that, and then the plot with the wife getting lost, and then her getting found again, and then once again Craig trying to restart his friendship. I feel like it isn't enough. I feel like I just needed a bit more something else, or at least for the plot to commence. And eventually, the movie. I mean, the end of the movie does confront Craig confronting Austin like, "Hey, look, man, I know I did one awkward thing and a bunch of other things one time, but you can't just do that to me. You can't just do that to someone. Befriend me, and then just all of a sudden just cut me out from your life." Um, and eventually, the movie does build to that, but towards the end of that, I feel like it wasn't satisfying enough. I mean, the situation. I mean, the whole thing itself was really funny, but I feel like I was a bit left in that sense. I don't know. I guess it could have been written a bit differently. I could be wrong. I don't know. I'm asking a lot from a movie that's only trying to humor the audience, and I found myself laughing a lot. But who knows? Maybe I don't know. I'm trying to remember a comedic movie that ends like, oh, and that was super satisfying. And there are some movies like that, but I guess I wanted to say is that I really enjoyed my time with this movie, but I just wanted a bit more, and I felt like it was a bit too situational for my taste. Um, but this, I really found the humor, very enjoyable, and it makes me want to watch. I think you should leave because while I'm very familiar with Tim Robinson and his sketch comedy, I'm not I haven't really watched, that show and his other works. But I definitely will now because I really did find a lot of stuff in this movie absolutely hilarious, and so did the audience. So this is a fun watch. I would recommend it. I guess if I wanted to give it a rating, I'd give it like I don't know, I guess a 3.5 out of 10. Sorry, a 3.5 out of 5. So like a very okay, great rating. I'd recommend this to watch. So definitely go watch this movie if you can in theaters. I know it's in select theaters in the time, and then by the end of this week, it should be a worldwide release. If you're able to catch in theaters, definitely go watch if you want a good laugh. The comedy, if you don't know Tim Robinson, I guess his humor is an acquired taste. It's not for everybody, because it also is very, I don't know how to describe it. It's not like very in your face. It's very again, if you like The Office and like that kind of awkward humor, or if you like, I think you should leave. This is the kind of comedy, the kind of movie that you want to see. You know, it's really funny. But again, if you don't like that kind of awkward humor, if you're more into like, I guess, I don't know, anything else other than that, this might not be for you. It might be a bit too weird for your taste. Again, I don't think it's weird, but it doesn't have that vibe of like, this is really awkward. But that's what makes it funny, and that's what makes Tim Robinson such a funny actor because he always puts himself in these situations, that are kind of realistic, and at the same time, man, do you feel bad for this person who is in this situation because he makes things hard for everyone, um, and that's what's really funny. You laugh at their expense. Um, Paul Rudd, I really liked him as an actor. Um, I feel like again, just before we end like the review, I felt like there was going to be something happening with him being stressed out in his new job as a meteorologist with the day shift as compared to the night shift. I just thought there was going to be. I felt like the movie was about to lean a bit more into like a some kind of darker aspect or into something else to drive the movie forward, but it just didn't, and that's why I gave it a 3.5 out of 5, because I could have used a little bit more. But I really liked it. Go recommend that movie. I do recommend that movie. Go watch it if you want to. If you have seen the movie, what did you think? Leave a comment below. Give this video a like, or and subscribe to this channel. Follow if you're listening on Spotify or any other podcast apps. I know this was a short video, but I wanted to give this movie a shout out because I think it was pretty fun, and I do think people should watch it. Um, so look forward to the next video next week or coming soon along this week. I will be watching Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. I think the last movie, Mission Impossible. I don't think this franchise is gonna die, but this might be the last movie that Tom Cruise will be in a Mission Impossible movie. I will be looking forward to this. However, I have heard some iffy things. I feel like some people are not liking it as much. So who knows? I will leave my expectations for the day of the movie. I really look forward to it. It was shot in IMAX. Tom Cruise is going to do a bunch of crazy stunts, so stay tuned for that and my thoughts on that in my review and my rating on the Watch That Movie channel, podcast, what have you. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.